Frog and Toad are friends. A lost button. Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked into the woods. They walked along the river. At last they went back home to Toad's house. "Oh, drat!" said Toad. "Not only do my feet hurt, but I have lost one of the buttons on my jacket." "Don't worry," said Frog. "We will go back to the places where we have walked. We will soon find your button." They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall grass. "Here's your button," cried Frog. "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button is black. My button was white." Toad put the black button in his pocket. A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow. "Did you lose a button? I found one." "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button has 2 holes. My button has 4 holes." Toad put the button with 2 holes in his pocket. They went back into the woods, and they looked on the dark paths. "Here is your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," cried Toad. "That button is small. My button was big." Toad put the small button in his pocket. A raccoon came from behind a tree. "I heard you were looking for a button," he said. "Here's one I just found." "That is not my button," wailed Toad. "That button is square. My button was round." Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. "Here's your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," shouted Toad. "That button is thin. My button was thick." Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and screamed, "The whole world is covered with buttons, and not one of them is mine." Toad ran home and he slammed his door. There on the floor he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button. "Oh," said Toad. "It was here all the time. What a lot of trouble I have made for Frog." Toad took all of his buttons out of his pockets, and he took out his sewing box down from his shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day Toad gave his jacket to Frog. Frog thought it was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy. None of the buttons fell off. Toad sewed them on very well. A swim. Toad and Frog went down to the river. "What a day for a swim," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad. "I will go behind these rocks and put on my bathing suit." "I don't wear a bathing suit," said Frog. "Well, I do," said Toad. "After I put on my bathing suit, you must not look at me until I get into the water." "Why not?" asked Frog. "Because I look funny in my bathing suit. That is why," said Toad. So Frog closed his eyes when Toad came out from behind the rocks. Toad was wearing his bathing suit. "Don't peek," he said. Frog and Toad jumped into the water. They swam all afternoon. Frog swam fast and made big splashes. Toad swam slowly and made smaller splashes. A turtle came along the river bank. "Frog, tell that turtle to go away," said Toad. "I don't want him to see me in my bathing suit when I come out of the river." Frog swam over to the turtle. "Turtle," said Frog, "you'll have to go away." "Why should I?" asked the turtle. "Because Toad thinks that he looks funny in his bathing suit, and he does not want you to see him," said Frog. Some lizards were sitting nearby. "Does Toad really look funny in his bathing suit?" they asked. A snake crawls out of the grass. "If Toad looks funny in his bathing suit," said the snake, "then I, for one, want to see him." "We too want to see him," said 2 dragonflies. "Me too," said a field mouse. "I've not seen anything funny in a long time." Frog swam back to Toad. "I'm sorry, Toad," he said. "Everyone wants to see how you look." "Then I will stay here until they go away," said Toad. The turtle and the lizards, the snake and the dragonfly, the field mice, they all sat on the river bank, and they waited for Toad to come out of the water. "Please," cried Frog, "please go away." But no one went away. Toad was getting colder and colder. He was beginning to shiver and sneeze. "I have to come out of the water," said Toad. "I'm catching a cold." Toad climbed out of the river. The water dripped off his bathing suit and down onto his feet. The turtle laughed, the lizards laughed, the snake laughed, the field mouse laughed, and Frog laughed. "What are you laughing at, Frog?" said Toad. "I'm laughing at you, Toad, because you do look funny in your bathing suit." "Of course I do," said Toad, and he picked up his clothes and he went home.